Peace and greetings, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to you all. Welcome into our fellowship space. How are you all doing?
Shabbat Shalom. It's nice that everyone's. I'm looking at all the different names that we need to greet everyone. This coming into our Sabbath. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, peace. I had to scroll up to see all the names and faces. Peace, Chief Yuya. Welcome, welcome, Waba. Thank you for being in space. Greetings, Chief Jason. Greetings, Alpha Woman Now with Yakira Eden.
Ooh,
Imanaya. Greetings, Master Menelek. Let's see who else is here in the space. Who else is here in the space? Top tier speaker. And I know I see someone else. Anu Radio. Anu Radio. We apologize. There was a power outage on Sapta Hava's side of things. So we were just, we had all the little lady things to do too before we started. But then when I came back, I was like, what? Black screen. Sapta was gone. Sapta was MIA.
that's it. That's it.
Well, we in black, so you know.
That's right. That's right.
So this evening's build, we are exploring, you know, the bewitcher, the bewitcher in us.
Yes.
What is the bewitcher, and we'll be touching on the idea of the Jezebel spirit. We'll be touching on the righteous ways to function, and how to decipher that energy around you, and also cite it and address it in self, right?
Mhm.
Because we always look for the bewitcher outside, but sometimes we bewitch ourselves. So this evening's build is called Bewitcher Beware. We are focused on proper, and the power of right thinking and culture. And of course, there's always healing when we align ourselves with right culture. This evening's opening psalm, actually, is an opening proverb, is Proverbs 14:32. Proverbs 15:24, pardon me, excuse me. The way of life is above to the wise, that he may depart from hell beneath. The thoughts of the wicked are an abomination to Yehovah, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. He that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, but he that hath gifts shall live. The heart of the righteous studieth to answer, but the mouth of the wicked poureth out evil things. The Most High is far from the wicked, but he heareth the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoiceth the heart, and a good report maketh good bones. The ear that heareth the reproof of life abides among the wise, and he that refuses instruction despises his own soul, but he that heareth reproof gets understanding. He that refuses instruction despises his own soul, but he that heareth reproof getteth understanding. So this evening's build will be a good one. We're going to jump right in. Of course, this evening we really, the objective is to for you all to gain insight, to serve, so that the insight serves as a call for all of us as followers of the great work of Anu. And we want to focus on the value and power of right thinking and culture, acknowledging the way our heart and soul plays an important role in the way we think and the actions we take, and in just being,
That's
right?
right.
Being. Thank you, Anu Radio, for sharing Proverbs 15 and 24 for us. And Sata, you want to take it away and start
Well,
us still?
as you were talking, I was just thinking when we talk about the power of, righteous thinking and just being aware of not only when we're doing the bewitching, but when someone is bewitching us. And the thing about the bewitcher, or when you're being bewitched, I should say, is it's a choice. And it's something that we're aware of. We're aware of when we're pretending to be someone that we're not. We're aware of it when we allow someone to um, to bewitch us because it's a choice that we make. Um, so we just want to make sure that as we are looking at righteous thinking and behavior as well, that we're always aware of our own behavior as well as those that are that we deal with, whether in business, in our family, at home. Because it's really something, because you can actually be bewitched by so many arenas, church, family, culture, friends. It comes in many different forms, which is why we have to always be aware of our own behavior. Um, I learned some things this strong myself as we were going through, you know, uh, different characters and how they operated in with bewitching behavior. So as we move along, we'll just share a little bit of that. But I'll go ahead and let you get started, and I'll
All right.
follow right behind you, Agoti.
So, one of the things that's important is to always create a standard or define things when we decide that we're going to talk about a topic or build in our community space. And so, when we hear the word bewitcher, what comes to mind when you hear the word bewitcher? First of all, for those of you who are in the chat, I know you can't steal a movie film reference, which is The Witcher. That's off limits. You gotta choose something else.
Yeah.
But what do you think about when you consider bewitching? All right, what do you think about when you consider bewitching? Um, for us, we made a connection to bewitcher and witchcraft, bewitcher and witch, and the root word is bewitching, and so bewitching is directly connected to spell binding and enchanting and sorcery, things of that nature.
Mm.
Um, and it actually reminds me of the word Wiccan. You know, okay. Um, oh my goodness, what is the name of it? That twitching nose, I can't even remember the name of the film, but all I saw was twitching nose. Yes, exactly. Tabitha. This is true.
Yeah, bewitch,
Be-
bewitch.
Bewitched, bewitched. That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, she says twitching nose, of course. Alpha woman now with Yakira Eden says, when I hear the term bewitch, I think of sorcery immediately. Right? All different forms of sorcery. Right? We even create sorcery ourselves, and then we reap, well, we reap the after effects. There are no rewards there at all, none whatsoever. Um, who else is in the chat? Anybody else sharing anything else after?
Yeah, it's Ima Aquia said it makes me think of charming someone with words.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Yuya says which comes from Wicca, which comes from warlock.
Warlock. Hmm.
So it all relates to witchcraft,
Yes.
which is something being in a trance or in trance. Um, you know, um, and a lot of time, I remember when I used to think of magic, I thought of it as trickery because I didn't, back in those days, I didn't really believe in magic. But of course, I've come a long ways, and I
Right.
know that magical things happen, for those with the power to be able to work magic. Um, so one of the things that we looked at is Jezebel, because I noticed that within Jezebel, at one time she did practice, um, she practiced witchcraft, but of course she came from a dynamic family background. Jezebel's father was a was I don't want to say he was a demon, and he worshipped Baal. And one of the things and he actually had a daughter that he taught, and that she grew up worshiping Baal, practicing witchcraft, and ended up marrying King Ahab, the
Right.
king of Israel, in which she was able to bewitch him and to trick him into also worshiping Baal, a false god. And and not only did she practice witchcraft outwardly, but she veiled herself. She was very seductive, a beautiful woman. She painted her face. She, came with all the seduction and manipulation and all the things that her character is defined in. Matter of fact, I went back this week, this strong myself, and I revisited the characteristics of Jezebel. And you know she hated authority. And this reminds me so much. I have to always be on guard for those characteristics rising up in myself. And yeah, you're when we talk about bewitching, there's a lot of times that we operate in that arena, but we just don't label it as such. So that's part of our discussion and our bill this evening.
Right. You know, one of the questions that we wanted to ask, but even before I move on, I'll jump in and share a biblical reference, because you spoke on Jezebel and identified her as, yes, beautiful but evil. You know, and later on this evening in our discussion, we'll talk about the appendages that some wear in order to feign beauty, and in doing so bewitch, bewitch others, or bewitch onlookers, those who may not be none the wiser. And or some people just want to be bewitched,
Mhm.
they want to be bewitched. Um, and you mentioned the fact that there was seduction and manipulation. So in 2 Kings 9:22, that is where we learn that Jezebel is also a practitioner of witchcraft, right? Because leading up to um, Kings 2, we see the lies, we see the manipulation, we see all of all of that, devious behavior. Um, but 2 Kings 9:22 actually says, when Joram saw Yehu, he asked, "Is all well, Yehu?" But Yehu replied, "How can all be well as long as your mother Jezebel carries on her countless harlotries and sorceries?" So there is an acknowledgement of, not just the controlling and the manipulation and the rebelliousness, but we do see that there is witchcraft involved.
That's
Um, and I know part of the power in telling this story is to actually be able to pull out what is significant when it comes to, thank you very much, Alpha Woman Now with Yakira Eden. I think it's really important to pull out the consequence of that type of life that one lives, because we see the demise, and we're not here to just show you the negative. We are going to point out and pull out those who live based on a standard that was beyond this type of root chakra submitting to the lower nature that we see in Jezebel. And the truth is, when we talk about, scripture talks about repentance a lot. This
oh,
scripture talks about repentance a lot, and one of the important things is to be able to identify what went wrong, right? What is it that that person did wrong, and correct it immediately. And it also identifies, and I'll share some of the names of those who lived lives that were identified as perfect lives. But all of these people at one point stumbled. And it's not, I'm not saying that they, they committed such, grievous acts that, they needed to be stoned, because there are some who do witchcraft, and that's the punishment, so to speak, right?
That's right.
But we do see that yes, they fell, but they repented, and in repenting, continue to live by law, right? And of course, Job is one of them. Job is one of them. But we know that when we're talking about Jezebel, we're not just talking about the idea or the character that we see in scripture in Kings. We're talking about a spirit. Jezebel is a spirit that is present, unfortunately, in myself, a spirit that's present in many of us women, and men as well. One thing Keith has taught us is that the Jezebel spirit can be a man or a woman, and is characterized by rebelliousness, hatred, disrespect, and is vile. It's vile.
Yeah.
It's vile. I think when we can talk about it on a time such as this, it empowers us to be able to see it and snip it out in ourselves immediately. At the moment when it's pointed out, or at the moment we realize, oh wow, this spirit is here.
Mm-hmm.
Bewitcher beware, because
Yeah.
if we're studied, and if we're pulling on the word of the Most High, and we're constantly surrendering ourselves, there's nothing that can take us over that is unrighteous, because we'll be pulling and moving so much on a righteous path. So, this evening is not just about the Jezebel, it's about the counter. It's about how do we arm ourselves so we're aware of, like when we're engaging in that behavior, so we continue on a path where that is corrected.
That's right.
That's really, yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, and it's so important to know that when you bewitch someone, or you allow yourself to be bewitched, that it doesn't end well. It doesn't end well, and again, I personally believe it's a choice, that you can't be bewitched without knowing you are, because when just like I have to constantly tell myself when I would like to say, well, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, I did. I know. And, I think about people, for example, like you talked about those in the Bible that had perfect lives, or maybe not perfect, but they made mistakes but repented. And one of the people that come to mind for me was Saul, because Saul was led astray or bewitched by greed. And he became disobedient. And I had to look at the Saul in me, this strong, because when we're told not to do something, or when we're given direct instructions, the Most High told Saul what to do when he was in to capture a city. He said, kill everything and everybody, don't save anything. But Saul decided, not only did he not do that, but then he used religious excuses for the reason why he didn't do it. And he blamed others as well, instead of taking responsibility and repenting. And it didn't end well for him. Not only did he lose his anointing, but he lost his kingship. And that's what being bewitched can lead us to, because he was entranced. He was led by greed, and when I say I saw myself in that, as I was studying this strong, because I was disobedient and I didn't do what I was told to do. And when it came to light, I had to admit I was wrong. I didn't have any excuses, and I had to get it right. And it made me think about David when he was told what he did wrong, because he was bewitched by looking at Bathsheba on the roof as she was bathing, and he led him into sin, and sin, the rebellion, and the disobedience that comes from that is all a part of being bewitched. And it's, I can't ever say I'm never going to sin, I'm never going to do it, but I can recognize it beforehand, and I have a choice. And I don't want to end up losing my anointing. I don't want to end up not living a righteous life in a righteous community. So when I see it coming, that's when I stop it, not afterwards, after the fact, but
Right.
as we see it. So this is all a part of that righteous thinking, and the power in righteous thinking, because we can prevent a lot of things that we have allowed to bring destruction in our path in the past. So that's why I'm really, I really did get a lot out of this, and all the different ways that this does apply to our the way we make choices. Um, Yes, that was exactly right, Ima Kuya. 1 Samuel 15:22 to 23. Yeah, because even with Jezebel, didn't she end up being thrown out the window and trampled by horses and eaten by dogs? I mean, she had a terrible end.
Yes, have to slow down and repeat it because and thank you for checking on the 5G now. Um yeah, slow down and please give us the punishment so we can see how the
Yeah,
punishment
you
fits the
know,
crime.
she was actually thrown out of a window, trampled by horses, and then eaten by dogs. So that, and usually when we are in rebellion and obedient and we don't repent or we don't change the course of our ways, it doesn't end well. It just doesn't. I mean, there are those, and again, I go back to Saul. His greed led to him not only losing his anointing, being the first king, but he lost his kingship,
Right.
and went mad actually. But, that's what happens if we don't turn away, if we don't, realize the path we're on, and we don't recognize things within ourselves. So there's always a time that we have to be accountable. I go back to Galatians 3:1, where Paul was talking and he said, "O foolish Galatians, who hath bewitched you? They that ye should not obey the truth, before whose eyes Jesus Christ had been evidently set forth, crucified among you." And, we have to ask ourselves, what are we allowing to bewitch us, to take our eyes off the prize, to forget what our purpose is? If it is your purpose to serve the Most High Yah and everything that He puts in place, not only for your protection, but we're not fools. We're not tossed to and fro like the sea.
Right.
We're informed, and that's one of the beauties about being in a new, is because we can't ever use the excuse, which is not even allowed in the court of law, which is I didn't know. We can't ever fall back on the excuse of ignorance, because we're in a place where not only do we know, but we're reminded constantly.
Yeah. And we're taught to decipher.
Mm.
We're taught to decipher uh as we increase in our time here together and our viewers as well. I want you all to pardon the glitches and the freezing that you might be experiencing right now. We are trying our best to, fix the problem, but I wanted to say the more we see it, we're taught to decipher and we're taught to see, and when you decipher, you see the truth of a thing, right? So the more we see that spirit and the spirit of the bewitcher or the sorcerer is vile, the less we do it.
That's right.
Less we do it, and then the less we do it, the less we have to actually repent
Mhm.
or make sense for what has happened in the past. And I remember Chief sharing a while back. He said, the reason as women we talk about obedience too much is because we're not obedient.
We're not at all.
Not obedient. And so it made me think of, and I know when we were building on this and preparing for our fellowship this evening, I kept saying we have to have the balance. We have to have the conversation about those who have done right and those who have walked that path with it, surrendered in full to the Most High, because we can't only present as if this is all we do, which is embrace the Jezebel spirit
That's right.
or be bewitched by
Right.
that spirit, even because of greed or money or wanting to
Right.
present ourselves in one way. But we know when we take off the layers, it's all of that stuff going on.
That's right. That's right. I did want to. I do. I didn't realize this when I was reading the story on Jezebel, but Chief put something in the chat and he said, and it was the castrated males Jezebel surrounded herself with, who threw her over the balcony. Castrated males quietly hated those who destroyed the blessing of their manhood. And it
Right.
reminds me of what you're saying. It does matter who we surround ourselves with. Imakuya said, yes, who's in your ear? But yet she surrounded herself by castrated males that ended up being the ones that threw her over the balcony. So I wow, that was something
That's
that's saying a lot. Because we also talked about, especially us women, we have to be really, really careful who we allow to get in our ear, because we're so good at bewitching each other, you know, um, that I remember when I came into a new, I never really heard of the war room before. You know how women get in a room and they talk about men.
oh
Yeah, he's this, he's that, and I remember someone saying, "Oh, we don't allow that here. We don't. That's not something we do." And I thought, who does that? Because I did it in my own head by myself. I didn't really join with others, which is just as bad, you know. But
right.
the fact that um, we surround ourselves with by people who either hate us because they don't think like us, they don't believe like us. I know people who have told me, people I knew, and I don't surround myself by them any longer, but they would say, why would you tie your hair up every day? Why would you not show your hair? I said, that's why do I need to show it? Who needs to see it? And why do you care?
Right.
To think it's a negative thing. Or
Because you know
huh?
I was saying it's your glory. And I think a lot of people know that. They know the secret and the science of hair intuitively, just naturally. And so when you start covering, it becomes now you're being secretive or you're hiding something
Right,
that they feel they're owed, like they're owed the privilege of. It's a privilege, but it's
right.
all, like it's sacred and it's not for you.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, we don't have to expose everything to everybody, you
no.
know. And back to when Chief was saying, and he said, yes, it was the eunuchs who threw her to her death, Sister
Mm.
Aquia. And he was saying, the soft friend, son, nephew, and brother quietly hates the female who expresses toxic masculinity and who manipulates him. Dangerous games. And you know what? I have to admit that that sounds so true. I didn't understand it, but I remember, I only have one son, and I used to think he had anger issues. He didn't have anger issues. He was surrounded by a whole bunch of toxic, masculine females and felt like he had to fight his way through to his manhood because that is not something that we acknowledged, understood, or even praised.
Mm-hmm.
So when Chief says brothers quietly hate the female who expresses toxic masculinity and who manipulates him, dangerous games, especially wives who manipulate their husbands. And I see that is so common. And matter of fact, what's that saying? We're a happy wife, happy life.
Oh, we
That
we had this discussion here. Oh, absolutely. Um,
that's so manipulating.
but to this point, I work with youth a lot, and I do notice there's a castration of young men happening, and the way I refer to it as an educator, I refer to it as parents who cripple, parents who demoralize, parents who rip the child, they rip the manhood
Mhm.
specifically out of boys. And the word he uses here is not manipulation, though there is manipulation involved there. He says mutilates,
Mutilate.
right? So
Yes.
to mutilate, you're destroying the object of what is it, not just a symbol. This is what makes a man, that identifies gender. I think that's really powerful when we talk about all the conversations about what it is to be a natural woman, what it is to be a woman, what it is to be a man. I was even listening to a podcast where Chief identified walking in a village, and he was walking with a native. I think they I think they were in Lagos, and there was a man who looked like he was cross dressed, also passing by, or clearly effeminate, and
Mm-hmm.
he was puzzled. And the man said, "Yeah, he's not right in the head."
Mm-hmm.
He's
Mm-hmm.
not the head, so it's clearly identifying mental instability, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
what of, and this is somebody who probably chose that. What about
That's
the
right.
people
That's
who did
right.
not choose that, but you live in an environment that constantly perpetuates and pushes you toward being an effeminate male. You're gonna lash out. It is dangerous because that example, that when she said, "Oh, it's the eunuchs that did that." Yeah, you're gonna pay for taking away the one thing
That's
that
right.
identifies me
Right.
in this world. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about the fact that I could give this woman protection and I could give her this thing. And I say in this thing, but I don't mean to be disrespectful in that way. You know, I don't mean for it to be taken in that way. So it's really, and I'm passionate about it because it makes me reflect on how that happens and is currently happening to our young brothers or young boys in the
That's right.
system, side of the system, in the homes. It is inappropriate. Um, and it's fashioning and forming minds that become very, re- they'll rebel with rights, right? But it could be, yeah, it could mean the difference between life and death. That's what I want to say.
Yeah. It's you remind me earlier I was at the store and there's this one young man who's always really, really respectful. And sometime I see him on his break and there's like a little um, not a lake, but I forget what you call those things like. But anyway, it's cemented in his grass. And on his breaks, there's times I see him down there exercising, doing his breathing exercises. And I think he does Wing Chun or something like that. But, either he's in the store being very respectful and working, or he's out there exercising. And today I was in the store and there was a young lady who was there and she was visiting, well, waiting for her mom to get off work. And she was a pretty girl, but she was having a conversation with him and he seemed really uncomfortable. because she was kind of loud and she was cussing a lot, you know, and just kind of laughing. And he was just kind of standing there. When I walked up to the little self pay thing, he said, "How are you today?" He just automatically cut her off. And he looked over at me and he said, "Hey, how are you today?" You know, and I spoke to him, and he went on to have this just uncomfortable look on his face. And she said something to him, and I turned around and I had to say something. And
Right.
because she said, "You're this or that," I said, "No, actually, he's not. He's a very respectable young man.
Mm-hmm.
One of my most favorite people I like to see every time I come in the store." And she said, "Yeah, he's pretty cool," but she went on to use this vulgar language. And I said, "And you know what, young lady, and I've never heard him talk like that." So it kind of offends me that you're having this conversation. And if you notice, he's not responding to you,
Right.
you know. And she looked at him and she said, "That's right, you're not saying nothing." And I said, "You should, you know, take a hint." And I just went on, and he just looked at me and he laughed and he said, "You're always so delightful." You know, again to but just because a man isn't forceful, it doesn't mean, you know, like it was a time that I remember girls that I would talk to saying, "Oh, he's real shy. He don't say much," you know. But now I understand that wasn't a sign of weakness.
Right.
Sometimes they just don't feel they have to, you know, respond or you know, play into what you're doing. But I can almost bet you you're not. That's not the kind of young woman he's going to take home to meet his mother. That's not the kind of young woman that he would choose to partner up with. You know, and she was really trying her hardest to impress him. And I, just by the look on his face, I thought to myself, "You are repulsive to him. You are not," because he didn't give, I mean, he wasn't smiling, he wasn't engaging. I think he was just standing there because he was a co-worker of her mother's, but he was
Right.
young, you know. But it's just things I noticed. So when
Right.
I hear things saying that, you know, um, they're not attracted to that, you know, not as far as thinking about someone to really partner up with, at least not the certain type of men that, you know, that aren't just males.
Right.
You know, because otherwise you get what you get, you know what I mean.
Well,
But
what,
the jet's really kicking here.
uh,
I was going back to look at where Ima Quia was talking about. She was talking about the movie The 300, the
mhm.
deformed man who was rejected and couldn't be a warrior was bewitched by King Xerxes. I always have a problem with his name. He played on his ego. You know, I'm trying to remember because that was a really good movie. It had a lot of masculinity going on in that movie. And Chief says, "Oh, he was when we I was talking about the person who was, you know, talking about me covering my hair. He said, 'Fools asking you about your hair. Whenever I get a peek of a crown slip from under a new woman's wrap, I think about putting the courtship papers on her. A peek at what is held sacred is divine.'"
True.
You know, that that's pretty interesting. I like that because now I don't even want to go to the mailbox in the front of the house without covering my hair. I just don't believe it's for everybody to see. I do now consider it sacred. And it's really funny because hair is one of the things that women use to bewitch others. You know, hair became a big thing, you know, fake hair, braided hair, you know, all the different hair that people use now, to pretend, you know, to,
Right.
yeah,
It,
it's
it's a how should I say? It's a very weak attempt at beauty. And by the way, tomorrow evening we will be having a room discussion on beauty,
Beauty,
the real beauty.
the
That
real beauty. Yes, 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 yes.
you know,
And you know,
if you're listening, just tune in at 8 o'clock, same time, same.
yeah, I'm really excited about that. And you know, it's really something because um, when you look at beauty according to the Western culture standards, it's, I mean, you can tell it's fake. You know, you never know what you're going to get. But it's so, I think it's one of the, for us in a new, to know and understand what real beauty is a part of the character that we build. Um, oh, and Chief Yuya also says here, killing a Jezebel, excuse me, killing of Jezebel, and he lifted up his face to the window and said, "Who is on my side? Who?" And there looked out to him were 2 or 3 eunuchs. And he said, "Throw her down." So they threw her down. Now, like it was mentioned earlier, these were people that were serving her. They were in the room with her. And when Jehoram, I believe that was his name, Jehoram, when he said, "Who is with me? Who is on my side? Who believes like I believe?" Because remember, Jezebel was killing all the prophets because they were all busting her out for the evil that she brought
Right,
to Israel when
right.
she married King Ahab, and how she convinced him and his followers to worship a false god and to take their eyes off the Most High. And we're talking about Israel, his people, you know. So yeah, and it's really funny because when I was reading about that, the prophet, he actually ran. He was scared because she put this executive order, I call it, out to kill all the prophets. And I thought to myself, wow, not only has she bewitched the king, but she's bewitched followers of the Most High. So yeah, that, again, we look at the way it ended for her, and it was nice. And Ima Aquia, oh, were you going to say something? I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So it goes back to the Galatians 3:1. Did you read that one already?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You who hath bewitched you that you should not obey the truth?
That's right.
Right? Who has bewitched you? Before whose eyes um, Yeshua hath been evidently set forth crucified among you. So, like that, and that this is, of course, not the Hebrew Testament, but the Greek Testament. What I find, yeah, right?
Mm-hmm. You're
Yeah.
right.
Okay, I was like, what? I know it's right. Oh, for a
You're
second,
right.
go to myself here. What? Um, I think it's important to see how there is that theme and that thread of bewitching that runs
Mhm.
throughout throughout scripture, right?
Right.
Throughout
That's
Torah and throughout the Greek Testament. And it's really important because when I think about just what we are taught, that the Jezebel is a spirit,
right.
then,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that a spirit needs a body. A spirit just doesn't, like hang out by itself. It needs a human body. It needs an earth being,
Right.
right?
That's right.
To actually inhabit in order to be able to exhibit the behaviors and the
Mhm.
mannerisms. So it's, I think when we identify it as a spirit, that's part of arming ourselves, because when we arm ourselves, we're able to, we don't face evil with evil, but we cut it away with awareness, right? We cut away that evil with awareness. I know what you are. And I
Mhm.
know you're not me, but I know you're a spirit that wants to reside in me. You will not, right? And it's not, I'm not saying go in your mirror and say you will not, because it's not going to happen that way. Sorry to say, unfortunately. It's not going to happen that way. And also showing strength and decorum and
That's right.
following law and right law. If we're always surrendering ourselves to the will of the Most High and to law, there will be no space for the rebellious, and there will be no space for the hatred. There will be no space for, just as you said, hatred of authority. and in that case, it's because she wanted to be authority, right?
Mm-hmm.
That toxic masculinity that
Mm-hmm.
seeks out, so dangerous, and in the it's very much present in the homes of the single mother. People be like, say, oh, single mother households, those don't exist. They don't exist.
Right. And
Right.
once we become aware that we possess that Jezebel spirit, oh, she don't let go. I mean, I became aware of, I actually was able to label what the spirit was and began to look at all the characteristics that I possessed through that spirit. And Bewitcher Beware reminds me that those spirits don't just leave you easily. Sometimes when they realize you're aware of them and that you're making sure when they pop their head up that you immediately take hold of that, and because you know what it is, and you deal with it within yourself. And I am so thankful. And when I say deal with it within myself, I talk to my covering about it all the time. And matter of fact, he's been able to say, yeah, there's that Jezebel picking her, poking her head up again, you know, and I know that that's something. It's an ongoing fight for me and struggle. But I look forward to a time when I've weakened that so much that it's not always something I'm gonna, I always have to be aware of my behavior and where it come from, what motivates it. And again, as Chief said, when we stay in the light and when we're doing and living righteously as we should, those things, we don't give them an opportunity to take hold and to take a lead. You know, that's just something that I remind myself of on a regular basis because as a woman, I know I'll never arrive without the help of that masculine energy in my life, my covering, um, my master. I'm just, it's just always good. And it's always so good also having a sisterhood because we see it in each other and we're able to also identify what we're dealing with and to just, it's always, it's such a layered in the community. It's always the accountability that's layered. If you don't get it from one place, you get it from another, but you're always going to get told by your light, by your master, by your covering. He's always going to be the one that's going to see those things. Um, One of the things that I like what you said, can you identify bewitching behavior within yourself? Because again, I've been identifying it, and also I've been giving tools to put it under wraps. Not saying it's not going to always keep trying to come back, because when those spirits have been working alive and working in you for a long period of time, they just don't go quietly into the night. They wait for the next opportunity to poke its head out, and if you're not paying attention to your behavior, which is why one of the beautiful things I like, I was exposed to self evaluating myself, being aware always. And I'm not, what is it called that we do? Um, I think it's like self evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
We're always evaluating where we're at. Oh, and I wanted to correct the name of the person I was saying who threw down. Chief said it's Jahu. I believe that was, yeah, Jahu. I was saying Jeroboam or one of the others, but it was Jehu
Okay.
that actually yelled up to the eunuchs that were in the room with Jezebel. But also, I like what Ima Akuya was saying. When we were talking about the fake hair, it's really funny because she said, oh, you're going to go back where it says, Chief has taught us how disrespectful mothers can be or are towards their sons, mothers not wanting their sons to remain reliant on them and do not want to be independent of them. And that's so true. That's so true. I believe I walked in that walk, without knowing. And you think, because I used to think I only have one son, you know, one which I could never teach to be a man. And once he got around men and anew, everything began to look different for him. I think it's the best thing that could have happened, not only for him, but for me as well, you know. But that is so true. Single mothers make that mistake all the time. And she says, trying to make eunuchs of them, that devouring mother. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it yeah, it falls right in line with what she shared above. Um, the fact that nephews, brothers, sons hate the female who expresses toxic masculinity and mutilates them.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Right. Oh, it's called an honest assessment. That's what
So
we are, yeah, that we have to do. Um, an honest assessment where we actually take inventory of our own behavior. And yeah, that's something that we're all required to do on a regular basis. And I tell you, my journal is full of those honest assessments. Matter of fact, I might put it under lock and key because I don't want anybody to get a hold of all those assessments that I've taken of myself.
well, Yakira Eden says, oh, she says, Akuya Sari says, this is why we are instructed to read Anui daily. It helps us to do a sober assessment of our
Sober assessment, yes, of
um,
ourselves.
and
Yes.
yes, you were saying, Chief was saying you were saying jam on it. I'm not sure. Um,
Oh, thank you so much for correcting that.
that um, Yakira Eden says, after often we do not see that spirit in ourselves. It is through righteous headship that brings light to the spirit of Jezebel within us. This is what you're saying is exactly when I first read Shahrazad Ali.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Read Shahrazad Ali. Um, the very first thing I did was I was able to see my mother, my auntie, my sister, and then headship. Like Chief had to say to me, I mean, not in those words, of course, but it's kind of like, aren't you gonna look at yourself because you are in there too, And I had to pull back, and I was like, oh wow, darn, that was,
Hmm.
you that was lame. Like, at what point do we pause to examine, right? And actually say, no, it's within us, and to back to speaking to the point that she's making though, there is a value in the direction. The value is in man being present. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, let me close my mouth now.
No. Well, I really can relate to what she's saying too, because the first time I never would have thought of myself when I first heard that in relationship to me. The first thing I thought about was the sexual aspect, because she was whorish also, and I thought, oh, I think I'm saying it right, whorish. She was promiscuous. Let me use that word. But I thought, well, I've never really been promiscuous. So, I didn't understand all the other aspects of the characteristic of a Jezebel. And you are so right, Ima Yakira Eden. It did take righteous leadership to point that out. And then when I realized that's what I possess, ooh-wee. At first I was like, you talk about that was so depressing, but it was also so true. And once I got past the ego of, oh, that's a horrible person, I didn't want to be that. Once I got past that, I thought, well, let me look at it. Well, let me look at all the ways I manipulate, how I try to be controlling, how I hate authority, how let me just look at, and oh, it became so obvious that I possessed all those traits. So now that you're aware of it, what you gonna do about it? You know, and again, through righteous leadership, you learn how to turn away from that behavior. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm still learning, but I want to get through this lesson because I may be fighting Jezebel's spirit for the rest of my life, but I tell you what, she's not going to be on top.
Yeah, I think that's where not I think that's where the repentance comes in, you know. Um yeah, it's like, yeah, the repentance is what actually gets us through that. So it is not something that we're repeating all our lives, because the objective is not for us to repeat our lives. A matter of fact, that's wicked, because that is not even in alignment with who we are. You
That's
know,
right.
we are naturally submissive. I actually saw someone leave a comment that says, like a natural woman, like, yeah, that doesn't exist. Stop gaslighting. But a natural woman is submissive. And if you're submissive, then you don't want to usurp authority. You don't want to be pulling strings behind, or thinking you're pulling strings behind
Mhm.
any man, because that's not real. That's in your head, right? Or in our heads, whatever, for whatever that's worth.
You know what? And it's so sad because in the Western culture, outside of the community that we are in a new, women are taught to manipulate. I mean, I got offended when somebody told me I was manipulative because I saw it in my mother, not knowing how much I possessed that same thing, because we are taught. I remember my sister, who was married for like 52 years. Once, when I first got married, she called herself giving me advice. And the advice was, the trick is in a marriage is learning to lead a horse to water and make him think it's his own idea of drinking. And for a long time I thought, lead a horse to water, because you remember how that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Well, what she was telling me was to lead a man in his thoughts and make him think they were his own ideas, which is very underhanded, manipulative, but it is something that a lot of women, they practice. It is bewitching behavior because that's out of line and out of place of who we are as women. The male, excuse me, not the male, but the man is our light. He's our leader. And being a righteous man, and be once you've been given direction and leadership by that righteous light, there's nothing like it. I mean, even there's some of us who, struggle trying to get in line because we've been doing the wrong thing for so long. But, there's, I'm convinced that's the right thing to do. That is something that I realize it's a better way of life. It's so different from this culture and how they try to teach women to manipulate, and like I said, that old saying, happy, and you hear men say it more than women, happy wife, happy life. That is so out of order.
It is.
Because for one thing, as a woman, I can say we're not very happy very all. Leave it to us. We're not going to find our own happiness. It might be one thing one day and it's something else the next day. Here comes all that chaotic behavior. You know, we don't know what makes us happy. And we'll change that every day.
So, I wanted to go back to the point you made about um, the manipulative behavior and the idea of um, being a puppeteer, because find all these wonderful names to say and
Hmm.
say it.
Yeah, they do.
You're controlling a man or and maybe, you know, a male if that's the case. But we learn that.
Hmm.
We learn it. It's passed on to us, and Shahrazad Ali speaks on it in The Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman. She actually breaks down in her first few chapters all of the different ways that we do learn how to lie, how to manipulate. And I think is Kuya Bisa says, I keep saying her name, Mao Kuya, uh,
Hmm.
it, it's being manipulative, sorry, and how naturally it comes because women, we represent power. We want to be in a space where there's power, you know. So, and I'm not saying that's right. I am saying that that's part of where it comes from. Um, but I think it was really profound when going through that text. You realize, oh wow, we're learning all of these things from our mothers. We're
Hmm.
learning how to say to a man, oh, we want this thing done, and then when it's not done, a day later, a dollar short, a day later, we go around to doing it or finding someone else to do it. Right? There's that huge lack of respect. That's disrespectful. We learn that she says things that demean and diminish the authority of the
That's
man.
right. That's right.
We hear it. Um, we hear it, and I will say, like I grew up in a household that spoke about like it, first of all, I should not be going anywhere on any date, right? But when I was allowed to, when I was like super old, what was always said to me was, like make sure you have the exchange, like make sure you have, things like that. And it was not from a space. It was not from a place where it was really seeking to be safe. It was literally preparing you, kind of saying, yeah, well, things are gonna hit the fan and make sure you can find your way home, which is wrong, right? This is wrong. And
Hmm.
most of all, you can't depend on the man that you're with.
That's right.
The way, do you understand? That's deep. And it's those teachings, those ideas, they stay with us. They
That's
stay with us for a long time, especially when we're not given an opportunity to have headship and have leadership, have a mate, have a man in our lives who can say, you're doing this. And this is a reflection of being rebellious. You have this behavior, or you're leaving out information rather than saying
that's right.
all of it, right? You're giving piecemeal because the objective is to, you keep somebody in the dark long enough, things will go your way, I guess.
Being
Um,
deceitful, yeah.
right, to be deceitful, right? You're hitting it on the head. And we're all, like we're all, maybe not we're all because I cannot speak for anyone, but they have been times like I have, and it doesn't matter what it is because we could say, oh, we're embarrassed, or we could say we're nervous, or we're scared because we did something wrong. But I have like lied in the past because it's like, oh my gosh, this, how am I going to present this,
That's right. That's right.
without actually clinging to what is the power of right thinking, which is what is like the focus. The power of thinking actually pushes us into a space of not reacting with our lower nature and always living by law. And that divine law dictates, oh, you're not going to give up truth for something else.
That's
Always,
right.
and if you cling to it, regardless of what comes, you're not. And she spoke about this to us in a private chat recently, where he shared, like what truth actually, like holding on to truth, what it does. So
Hmm.
like I think that it's so important to think about the how to counteract, not just and I'm saying it from the place of I remember when we were speaking about obedience over and over, he said, "You're speaking about it so much because you're not listening, right?" So, at
Mhm.
what point are we going to say we're not going to be disobedient? At what point are we going to listen? And I'm saying it for myself. I'm all inclusive here. At what point are we going to say, um, I am not usurping or desiring to usurp authority? I am submissive. Yeah.
Yeah, Ima Aquia earlier, she was saying that Chief talked about women being manipulative and how naturally it comes. He refers to daughters being that this way with their fathers, and boy, how true that is. I remember a couple of bills ago, I made a statement about, maybe one day I'll learn how to be obedient or something to that effect. And Chief responded, "No, you never will. You're always going to need guidance. You're always going to need," and I can appreciate always needing guidance, always, and never get to a point where I think I can do it on my own, because that's the destructive behavior. Um, I like what Alpha Woman, Yakira Eden said. When while we're bewitching and having all these other behaviors, I think you might have to go back up, because she said something that I was looking at.
That's
Instead of being direct, authentic, and free in my emotions, because while you're so busy manipulating things and while you're so busy trying to control, you 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 miss out on what the real qualities, and what really, once you understand and know there's freedom in your emotions, there's freedom in being direct and authentic, and and free in emotions. That's something that I'm still learning to experience,
right.
because having that masculine and Jezebel toxic femininity present within me for so long, I have to actually think about being free in my emotion. It doesn't come natural. You know what I mean? I have to think about being direct and authentic, because I'm so used to lying and being deceitful. So now it's I've done it so much and so long. It takes effort and being aware. You know, to remember, just be honest, just speak authentically, just keep it real, you
Right.
know because you've been the bewitcher for so long, pretending to be something that you're not, pretending to act and behave a certain way that's not really the true you. All that gets down to that witchcraft we were talking about, you know to deceive, and it is all part of witchcraft. So I can really appreciate, again, doing that sober assessment with self on this behavior.
Um, yes, this is true. Um, Emma Yakira Eden. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing so far. It seems as if you're the only one who has shared. Um, Emma Queer, I think you read this one already. Uh, Alpha Woman now has reposted the question.
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
question. And I've been sharing this whole time how I've been bewitching behavior within myself. So she's right. I like to hear from some of the others. Um,
uh, I'm inclined to do cheese grow tick right now, but uh, maybe not.
so a top tier speaker says, I can definitely identify the Jezebel in myself, as well as it comes out in wanting to control what I cannot.
Mhm. The
Hmm.
measure of desired control is proportionate to the degree of godlessness. Hmm. And Chief has taught us too about fear, like fear. We have this amount of fear because there's a desire to control, and fear actually, it doesn't allow you to think properly. It doesn't allow you to make the right decision. So out of fear, you do something because you want to hold the reins of the situation in so many different ways.
Yeah,
He says, what will qualify you to be so sure that you control is always the key ingredient to the best is what would qualify you to be so sure that your control is always the key ingredient to the best outcome? It's wicked, right?
that's
Right.
right.
And when
Yeah,
something is wicked, it is going against its nature. And as a woman, that's not in our nature. It is not what is part of being a natural woman.
that's right. That's right.
It is Yah it is Yah yoked to man. When we talk about the Hebrew letter, the Aleph, which is a representation and symbolic of the contracting that happens between Yah and man. Man is who's yoked to Yah. So it's really, it's crucial to think about when we say, not even think about it,
Mhm.
just do it.
That's
Don't
right.
desire to control. Just, receive instruction and move off of it. Um, and, in addition to, like stating before, not always saying the truth, um, and lying, like those things, they have an effect on our lives. They
They
have a
do.
karmic effect on our lives. They affect the things that we do, even the gifts that we may want to share with others. I always think about how those things that she spoke about this earlier, and I'm still trying to look for it, but he speaks about like keeping promises, right? Keeping promises, and making sure that we speak truth. And I really think that like that's a part of it. That's a part of it.
It makes me think when we go back and look at control because um, when I think about making promises, now it's very sacred. I'm very careful before I make a promise going forward anymore. Because some things we have no business promising. It's again, this is all part of me learning to not be in control. To that I always need to go and seek counsel and direction because we just have to be careful even in what we promise.
Mhm.
We can't be real quick to make promises. But it just made me think about that when you were speaking about keeping promises. I like what Akote Yafe says here.
Mhm.
She says, yes, my answer to keep people from recognizing my insecurities as they surface, I will spin the conversation to create confusion. I laugh because I've done the same thing. I'm not going to even say I used to. I've done the same thing. Um, that makes, yeah, you just want to change the subject, go somewhere else with it. So, yeah. Um,
Emanaya says, hearing constructive criticism, it would send me to anger, and I had become cold. That's my answer.
yeah, that's that part, I think, that relates back to hating authority, at least for me, because especially it doesn't matter if someone criticized me, that really doesn't matter. But if it's someone in authority, like my covering and my leadership,
Right.
and for me, it wasn't anger. It was, what's the other word? It was it all relates back to ego to me. It was, I would be hurt by the criticism. I didn't know how to take criticism to grow because criticism it should allow you to know what you're doing wrong so that you can correct it. But that's not being, again, that's part of not being mature in our emotions, more or less. So these things make me think of why the qualities, for the new woman are in place, because it speaks to all these different things.
And I wanted to jump in and just say, Imanaya actually identifies the criticism as constructive criticism. I think and maybe it's on the back end, you're able to say that, but when we're able to identify that we're getting constructive criticism and then say we get angry because of the constructive criticism, and I'm saying constructive and I'm like highlighting it because we know constructive is feedback for growth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, here are all the glows and grows. Okay, let's do it that way. So there are glows, there are things that we're doing well, but there are grows, and that's what constructive criticism is. It actually empowers you and brings you toward that growth path, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting that's
Yeah.
an interesting one. Thank you for those of you who shared thus far. Thank you. Imakuya says, I use my words forcefully and sometimes use body language. Oh, so you trying to be a titan or something. I don't know what it is. Like you trying to share blows. Look at that. I use my words forcefully and sometimes use body language so as to mount up and appear intimidating towards others. You know, and I think all of what we're sharing, it goes back to, and you said it, the um the required qualities. I
Mm-hmm.
also about, like the chief speaks on this in a few of his older podcasts on, the 64 arts and
Mm-hmm.
excuse me, on Kama Sutra.
Mm-hmm.
Think of, all of the different skills. It should be both men and women, but I think about all the different skills that we could be investing in
Yes.
building and growing in versus the ones that and I think in some places they call it like replacement behavior, right? So it's there are all these other areas and avenues that we can be growing in that can replace the others, right?
Yeah.
The
You know, I'm.
line, the
Yeah.
um, false representation, the
Right.
anger, the criticism, like all of these, the using of words to gain favor and
Mm-hmm.
intimidating others. Yeah, I just, I know. Yeah, I'm gonna let you go.
No, you know what? I'm sitting here laughing because I have to think back on the retreat when I believe Ima Aquia put on, remember the little jingly belt like for a belly dancer? And
Yes.
she was getting her, and when you said the 64 arts, I have to, totally opposite of what is being said here, use body language, to mount up and appear intimidating. That was such a soft, I pictured the opposite of that.
Yes.
Because when you spoke on the 64 arts, I thought, you know, how about not that way, but how about this way? And this is something that we are supposed to invest in. And I think it does soften us, because it tends to teach us more about the femininity that we're supposed to walk in, to be pleasing and even enticing, but
Yeah.
not in the wrong way, because bewitching is a sort of enticement, but we're not talking about doing it in, we're talking about doing it in a righteous way that
Yes.
we're supposed to do for the right person, not
Righteous, righteous,
just for anyone.
righteous desire. Righteous desire.
Right. But I thought about her putting that belt on as we were all enjoying each other, and the movements that are not intimidating,
Yeah.
but it's totally opposite of that.
But soft and gentle and very
Mhm.
and you know, yeah. Yeah.
And Abaharu says, I remember growing up watching one of my grandfathers resenting my grandma, even though they were married for over 45 years. Her feminist ways destroyed his trust in her. Yeah, that's exactly what Treese was talking about earlier. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of times women, when they say, my husband's not affectionate or my mate's not, this or he's not that, a lot of time he's not that because we're not what we're supposed to be. You know what I mean? So
Um,
it always, we have to take it back home. You know what I mean? Because I remember going through times of feeling that, not recognizing that masculine, you know, uh, that masculinity that I was, you know, um, um, portraying. Uh, Matter of fact, I remember one time I was told, you need to stop trying to wear my pants. And I didn't say it, but I was thinking something that was, you know, something that was totally, it didn't help me. Let me just put it that way. It didn't help me get what I wanted because I didn't know how to stay in my place. And the place that we have, we've been talking about natural woman, we've been talking about mind heart balance, and throughout this whole month, and even from last month, we've been talking about the heart. And and to me, when we talk about mind heart balance, and we talk about the heart, and we talk about the power in positive thinking and the way we're supposed to carry ourselves, both men and women. I can't speak for the men's side, but I can say that, you know, you really do get more of what you need, and when you stay in your place, and you do it authentically. I think that's a really good word, because when you're authentic, then that bewitching spirit isn't so present. You're not trying to control, you're not trying to manipulate. You are respecting, and appreciating authority more than hating it,
mhm.
you know, because that's where a lot of that witchcraft comes in at.
And sometimes I wonder about the hate of authority versus the usurping of authority, which is not the hating, but I want the authority.
Mm.
I, I want the authority even though I am power, right? Because women are power, men, that's authority. And I think about, when we learn about the fact that there's a correlation between authority and spirit, and how the spirit of authority actually transfers through the man.
Mm-hmm.
So that soul transfers to through the woman. I have a role already. I have a purpose and function and a and when I say I mean I as a woman, collective woman,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is power. Then
Uh,
who's man in power? If you know what I mean. Like if I'm over here trying to be authority through
but man is the head, and authority is the head that rules over the body, and the body is woman. So if the head is telling the body what to do, if the power in order to do it is going to flow the way it's supposed to. But when you got the body trying to tell the head what to do, and it's just, so much imbalance comes in. You
and
know.
example we could give is like the idea of the church being the body and
Mhm.
Christ being the head,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
And when we think about, we're speaking biblically, of course. There are the and this may not be the absolute, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, there's a correlation between the church as the body, and the church is also represented in many biblical scriptures as a female, right? As a woman or as the bride.
That's right. The bride.
Sense, and so You know, there's some of them are I think it's Song of Solomon, you know, where there's that dialogue that constantly happens, and you see the example of headship and body. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Body as the vehicle, headship as leading, you
That's right.
know, sharing. And so that's the same parallel between Christ and the church, you know,
That's
and that relationship is, you know, it plays out in many different ways, but there's that authority and power always.
that's right. That's right. It's it's so refreshing to me when you don't have to guess what and who you're supposed to be. Because part of the bewitching behavior I've also experienced is trying to be what others expected or wanted me to be, but I wasn't really that. So there's a deception in that. It's like we were talking about catfishing. I wasn't familiar with that show until I heard other people talk about it. And
Right.
one day I watched one episode. I think this the only episode I ever watched. But I sat there with my mouth wide open for
Right.
the whole show going, no, you didn't date this man 3 years online and not know what he really looked like, or I was like, oh my goodness. So this is another form of deception, and people open themselves up to it, even with the online dating situation,
Yeah.
which is why you need community,
Yeah.
because that's ludicrous. It's crazy that you would actually seek to date someone online. Don't nobody know him. You know what I'm saying? No family members have met him. You don't, your community don't know him. He's just dropping in out of, the matrix, we're not going to talk about the matrix tonight, but
But
he's,
that's Isaac's
that's, yeah,
Isaac's wheelhouse.
yeah. But, that you would allow yourself to have intimate conversations with someone you don't know, and they could be whoever. They're telling you who they are, and that's it. You're just supposed to believe that without any evidence, you're asking for trouble. And
Yeah.
I never understood these online dating services. And so when I watched that one episode of Catfish, I thought, this is ridiculous. This is we set ourselves up for such wicked experiences. And,
Right.
it's like you're walking into a dark cave without any light, and you get what you get. And
Some people choose that, Safta. Some
yeah,
people choose that, and I think, you know, going back to Akoti Yafe's, you know, mantra, water seeks out its own level. You desire that, you know, you desire that. We don't date in Anu. That's not a part
right.
of our ethics and our protocol, you know. And I think that's what's so important about. I'll connect back to the 14 keys, because the 14 is knowledge and culture,
That's right. That's right.
right? And knowledge and culture gives rise to power. That's the real power, right? But we seem to think that power lies in other things. So people will go online, they'll do those things, or they'll cling to magic and witchcraft, so to speak. And
Hmm.
the sad thing is they think they're holding on to power. They're like, okay, I want this person, I want that person in my life. I'm going to go online and date. Ridiculous. That's like playing Russian roulette, right?
Hmm.
It is like,
Hmm.
you know, or opening up a box of chocolates and wondering,
What, yeah.
a wooden make a, you know, like
Yeah.
look alike, but what are you gonna get? You don't even know, you know.
Yeah, it's
You-
so sad. And that's again, you know, I don't want to set my grandchildren up, and it's not my choice because they have parents, but at the same time, um, it's I just, it's just such a trap
Right.
that's set for the youth who have no guidance, no direction, no community, no culture. because that's what they have to look forward to. I keep looking at the chat and I'm laughing
Yeah.
because Ema Quinn was like, no, don't share about the belly dancing.
Uh,
and, and Chief said, I was already on it, Aquia. I didn't know y'all were belly dancing. We were just doing push-ups in the men's cabin.
uh,
It was all in fun. That was all part of our feminine experience.
yeah, yes, yes. I wanted to greetings, Ben, the deck. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Contribute to the build, please. That's true. Yes, agreed. I think you were that was top. You were top tier speaker. Did I cut you off, Safta?
No, no, no.
Oh,
I'm listening.
got it. I mean, email top tier speakers responding to Chief, and Chief gave his answer. When I don't slay Jezebel, Arab, when it rears its head, sometimes I'm not in the mood to hold back from telling someone to shut their mouth as a result of them exploding from hearing the truth. Hmm. Ahab. Sorry, not Arab. Ahab. Arab. Just did that. Oh my gosh. You know, he's an Arab. No. Uh,
Amen.
no, Arab. But this true. Thank you, Chief, for sharing. Thank you. What you shared actually brings me to the film that we wanted to not discuss in depth, but just talk about one portion of it. Another portion we'll talk about tomorrow in the beauty build. So for those of you who are, anybody in here, a sister, call a sister, find a sister friend. Um, no frenemies. Bring them in and welcome them into the space. 8 o'clock sharp. We'll be beginning our build tomorrow on beauty. But what Chief share just the word slay and the idea of slaying the Jezebel and the Arab brought me to the film series Witcher. And for those of you who know Witcher, just drop a thumbs up in the chat or a heart in the chat or a thumbs down in the chat, depending on whether you like the film or not, the series. But in that series, um, there is male a man who is a hunter of monsters, and
Mhm.
in hunting down monsters, you realize that he's half blood. Like they are powers given to him for him to slay the Jezebels
Mhm.
of the monster world, so to speak. But what I found interesting in it, as I watched the character move through episodes, I realized that he is recognizing that there is a monster inside of the human and earth beings that he encounters most of the time. And so I found that very profound because though again it depicts all of the monstrosities,
Mhm.
I dare to question how much do the monstrosities represent the monstrosities within us.
Mhm.
Just Chief's idea and point about slaying the Arab when it rears its head. The Ahab. Why do you keep saying Arab? That's so bad. Wrong. But the idea of slaying that Ahab and that Jezebel, um, within ourselves and elsewhere, right? Like outside of us. I think that's the idea of arming ourselves and preparing ourselves and saying bewitcher beware, because the truth is bewitcher, we're aware. We have awareness. We're being given the ability to decipher and see the
That's
truth
right.
of of
That's
of,
right.
of what is happening with us. As women, we have our headship, have our leadership, and we also have time to actually think about what it is that we're doing too. Like we have to have at some point, we have to be doing that thing and
That's right.
executing unrighteousness without having someone to constantly say, but at the same time, it will always be for the rest of our lives as women, we need direction.
Yes.
Always, always. But the point about The Witcher, I think, was very powerful because it goes back again to us becoming slayers. At some point, we have to actually see ourselves as the slayer, right? Or the witcher, or the one who's able to decipher and see and be able to pull out the sword of the word of the Elohim and use that, but also use the ability to see when those behaviors are reared their head and change the behavior immediately. You know?
Yeah, and as you were speaking, what I was thinking of is the fact that when we change our outer appearance, it does something to our inner. For example, in that series you're talking about, there was a young woman that was deformed.
Jennifer.
Yeah, and when she went into another witch to have him change her appearance so that she would be beautiful on the outside, before, when she was deformed on the outside, there was a sweetness, a innocence, a purity about her.
Yes.
A character that you were drawn to because you thought, well, she might be deformed in body, but she's such a sweet person. That was the personality, the vibe she gave. But once she became beautiful on the outside, she became very ugly on the inside. Her behavior changed. She became mean
Yes.
people. She was real snappy, and even to a point of being really deceitful.
Right.
So sometimes, one of the things that we talked about, and I'll tread in this area very lightly because, there are powers to be that think it's all good. But it made me think about a story I was writing years ago when I was married. We were in San Francisco, and there was an accident or something on the street. And to be honest with you, it's the first time I saw a man dressed as a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what happened was we were sitting at this intersection for a long period of time, waiting for whatever was going on. And I looked over and I told my husband, he said, "What are you looking at?" I said, "She is really pretty." I mean, it was the whole ensemble, the dress, the elegance, the everything. Just look, hair was in place, and she was just really an attractive woman. And till I had to actually say, "Well, she's just really pretty,"
Right.
just thinking out loud. And he took one glance. He looked around me and he took a glance and he just looked at me and laughed. And I said, "What? What's going on?" He said,
Oh,
"That's not a woman."
oh, you were bewitched. You were bewitched. Can I twinkle my nose? No, I can't.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, how did I not see that? He goes, "Just look at her feet." And that's what he said at the point.
Oh,
And I thought, oh my gosh. But I didn't even look at the everything. But it just made me think of the other day. There was this strike going on. It was a bunch of parents at the school district meeting because this one particular school, and I forget the state it was in, they actually allowed men dressed up as women, transvestites or whatever you call, to come in and perform a theatrical show for a bunch of elementary kids. And the parents were furious. And
some parents.
I would have been too, but that's the reason why we don't send our kids to public schools, but for the
Well,
most part. But I thought, wow, um, again, bewitcher beware. Are we now if it's like if a man chooses not to date a man who considers himself to be a woman, they're considered to be haters of some sort, or but again, and I know Chief talked about this in more than one podcast that I've watched. um, and I always go back to thinking how we live in a society and in a world that allows people to bewitched and to bewitch others. And if you're, like you said, we're aware, we're taught to be discerning, and so we know within a new, but it just makes it all the more necessary for people to be tied to community and culture because I mean there are. I know there's many cultures that don't believe in same sex relationships. They're not really called out, but they've been like that ever since they've existed. But then there are many that are now trying to say, well, it's okay. It's okay. Well, I stand on the fact that our creator doesn't change. He said what he said, he did what he did. And I think Chief mentioned it, that man was taken, when we talked about the natural woman, that woman was taken from the rib of man, you know, and the things that she possessed is to be a helpmate to the man. And I don't think you can make that up or create it or be phony about it in any way. It's hard enough for the natural woman to adjust and learn to be what we were created to be in a society that's so full of falsehoods, that everything goes and it's fake and you can mimic. Which is why when we were talking about the natural woman, I thought about, the robotic technology um, that's there now, and
Yeah.
how you can actually buy companionships that are not real, that are made. And again, it's all about a society that accepts things that you just can't you can't make these things up, you
You
know.
know, I mean, it. Hey, Bewitcher Beware. I walked into our school had a book fair, and I always it's a book fair. I'm gonna go. It's a children's book fair, but I'm thinking about all the children I know I could get a book for. No, I didn't buy any. I have to just say that. So, because I didn't buy it. Did not. For any children that I know. But
Yeah,
I like to see what it is that is being presented to our children. What are that are being published? And there was a book. I can't remember the title of the book. What stood out to me most was there was a picture of a boy on the book. His shadow was a ballerina. A boy, but the shadow a ballerina. Talk about bewitched. So like that's really slick and devious. The shadow.
this is, I love the way Chief says, he said he saw it coming a long time ago when they were first laying down, the footprint of where they were going with this thing. And now it's full blown into a society that is trying to convince everyone that this is okay. And it's dynamic behavior. It's an abomination, because I keep thinking about, I believe it's Deuteronomy 11, that talks about all the things that the Most High, he says, isn't about, not all the things, but some of the things that are an abomination that he said we are not to do. And he spells them out, you
Right.
know, about laying about being with animals, about being with family members, about being with the same sex. And I don't read later in the book where he changed his mind about that.
Uh,
You
well,
know, I
it,
don't.
it's what's even profound is that we could physically law importance. Look at how law manifests.
That's right.
Only a man and a woman can produce a nation.
That's
That
right.
if there's no nation without man, woman, and Israel is a nation. So that balance needs to be there. I wanted to I wanted to jump back into the chat because
Yeah, they're having fun over there.
know, there were some good points made about Witcher, and I wanted to, because you shared them. I
Mhm.
want to go in a little bit deeper, go into it a little bit deeper, but I know we will do that tomorrow on our conversation on beauty because this is, we're gonna have a little bit of a segue, I guess. Um,
Yes.
into it. Email clear, but I do want to read and
Mm-hmm.
share. Thank you, Chief Yuya, for posting the Clubhouse link for Anu Life Global. Um, Ben said, Deck, please let us know. I know you said Toda Araba, Chief, but let us know if you were able to connect and subscribe. Email Kuya says, listen here, let us be honest about all the dark corners we've sought men. I'm not saying to tell it all here, but my point is we women do and have done many silly things. Yeah. So searching in dark corners for men is beyond silly. That's a different word for that.
That's right.
Dark corner. What you looking for in dark corner? I don't know what you
Come out of that corner.
Dust bunnies? Dust
That's funny.
bunnies. Oh boy. You know, it says it is very important to be covered within a culture that sets standards and laws within it. We'd remain wildlings. Yes, standards
Mhm,
and laws that are a direct reflection of the will of Yah.
mhm.
Direct, because some people do set a standard and we sometimes get caught up in what the that standard is out there because we always want to point to what it's so much as opposed to really looking at the standard we create, the standard that has been created for us that we ought to live,
That's
rather,
right. That's right.
you know. Imakuya is the only person who likes Witcher. No,
No, do you see what Chief even knows her name?
yes, oh yes, yes, yes. I will say that's where I learned about the
Yeah, you can't get too much past him, I tell you.
Witcher. Oh, he says Yennefer gave up. This is so powerful. Yennefer gave up her feminine power to procreate in order to look more appealing to the people she would want to procreate with. This is
Wow.
true. This is true. And it's funny because now we see now you see how I can be a standard was created for me and I am to be set apart and to live a life that's set apart because the truth is her life was difficult, but it set her apart in many ways.
Yes,
It
yes,
protected her in many ways.
yes.
No one actually paid attention to her, with the exception of
That one guy.
yeah. I could, oh gosh, I can't even say his. I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name. Is not coming to me. Um, Gosh, I thought I had his name, but yeah, it slipped me. Sorry. Um, However, like in doing that, yes, she gets the attention of everyone else, but
Hmm.
no one actually sees the true core of who she is. Well, actually, it's a sacrifice. And Chief, the thing about what you shared is when I think of, I think her name was Siri. It was the woman who was actually teaching them
Right,
the order and the
right.
alchemy that they needed. The very first lesson she taught them was there is a balance. There is a balance. She gave them something to move.
That's
And first girl who moved it, she moved it with her right hand and her left hand withered. And that was a Gerald. Thank you very much on the radio.
yeah.
She moved the first, which was the melanin woman. So melanin
Mhm.
dominant woman. So I was like, yeah, yeah, that,
Why not? Yeah.
you know. But she moved she whatever she did it with her right hand and her left hand with her. So that told me instantly there's a sacrifice. Immediately there is, and she said, yeah, there's balance. You could do this thing, but if you do this one thing with your right hand, I think she was holding a flower in her left hand. So rather than her hand withering, the flower withered. So that made me think of the idea of sacrifice. What do we sacrifice? So when Yennefer did that, what withered inside of you? That's all I could think about. What died? Because the withering just represented death. The wither, oh yes, it was. Yes, Geralt is the Witcher, rather, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
was where was he sitting in? He sat in a, I don't
In the court, yeah, when they had the council or something that he said it. But no, he was a servant like she was, because remember when they put them together and watched them for entertainment?
right. I think
Yeah. So, but his name I can't pronounce that. Is Istred?
it's straight.
Yeah, was the one. So no, it was Istred and Geralt was the Witcher. They became involved later.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, that was but if you go back up, Chief does say, but remember, Istred was tricking her as she was tricking him.
True.
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of bewitching going on in that show. That was and since understanding, I can't watch anything without looking deep into a meaning to see what's what and what's being portrayed, and how to take the certain jewels out of it, because there's something to learn in it all you know
Yes, yes, indeed.
hmm
The world order today is a system of bewitching. It is our it is in our school systems, churches, corporate companies, it's military, healthcare, it's all over. You
that's
know, Chief said something very profound in a recent lecture that, shows us there are groups of people, and specifically he identified the Pope as the one who identifies what the curriculum will be.
hmm
You know, so that's very profound. That's something that we should not take lightly.
That's right. That's right.
Because the question now becomes, well, who's distributing the standards of being and law, right? And what are you portraying? You're portraying one thing, but you're distributing a law that undermines, the very fabric of what it means to be right. And
That's right. That's right. I keep, when as we're talking, I do think about the Boule Society as well as Psych Ops, because there's a lot of behind the scene things going on that orchestrates what appears to be one thing for someone who's not really seeing with the all seeing eye, who's not really seeing what's going on.
right,
Um, so it's not hard to be bewitched through our society, as Ima Queer was mentioning.
right.
Through this, it's not hard to see it if you know where to look or how to look at it. Again, it goes back to our discerning and who we serve and how we are aware of what goes on around us, which again brings us back to why we need to recognize you know, um, when we are bewitching or we're being bewitched or someone is trying to, because of course we're not going to let it get past first base.
First, oh boy, what's going on? I think about those who do not lean on the word. They don't lean on culture, and they don't, because their power again is invested in magic and sorcery, and it's meant to beguile, right?
hmm
They
hmm
and it's meant, but that enchanting is to our harm. It's not
That's
for
right.
it.
That's
You
right.
and I wanted to say that they're not clinging to a code of conduct. They're not clinging to how to marry. They're not clinging to how to eat, how to dress. And I think it's critical. It's a critical part of culture. Like if we cling to and hold on to culture, which Anu provides consistently, it gives you down to following edicts.
That's
There
right.
are, we do these things here, right? This is our vital edicts. They're called the vital edicts for those of you who are here and want to know about a little bit about some of the references that we've been making to the Anu Way. It's the Anu Way Foundations, Volume 1, can be found on the Anu Life Global Ministries website, anulifeglobal.org. So, jump on in there. We have blogs, we have videos, all sorts of bits of research and things that you can do on the website, and also download that volume,
That's
because
right.
in there you can find the edicts, and you can use those edicts to outline a code of conduct and order for yourself and for family, not even yourself. With nation builders,
That's
we
right.
ain't, there's no
That's right.
self. It's we.
And you know, it's like as you were speaking, I'm thinking of how much information Chief Yuya even puts out. When I mentioned the Boule Society and
Right.
the Psych Ops, these are videos that are on YouTube, and they're there for the watching. All you have to do is, and as you mentioned, it's also on Chief Yuya's website,
Yes.
all the podcasts. Because if you didn't know, and if you don't know, it's no longer an excuse because information is there for you to figure out exactly what you need to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
where you can start to seek and learn this information. And of course, you can't believe everything on YouTube and that's on the website, but he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying, because there are those of us who seek truth. And if you have a heart and if you're seeking truth, then it's there to be found. And sometimes you got to look a lot of different places, but you'll know it when you see it. And if that's your true motivation is seeking truth, you know, so yeah, it's all out there. Because when you were speaking, I was thinking not only about those two podcasts, but about when you were giving the information about the new way.
Yes.
Because I don't know how many people I've forwarded that to, and it's online and it's free. You can give a donation if you want, but you know it's there, and it makes so much sense when you start reading it. At least to me, I was like, whoa, and I've been reading the Bible for years, and half that time I had no idea what it was talking about. you know, because you have to learn a little bit more before you can even begin. I remember Chief did name coding in the Bible, and I remember sitting there thinking that whole day, I'll never read the Bible the same. I now understand there's codes and there's things you have to know to be able to read between the lines and to understand what's really being given. Even the people that tried to interpret it did not, they didn't even, it wasn't written for them. So their interpretation it's a hit and miss. you know. So yeah.
Matthew. Okay. The Coven, Abaheru Amenhotep. Can you give us a little bit about the Coven, please? Because it sounds familiar, but I
Oh,
cannot.
the Coven. I think he was talking about the American Horror Stories. Was
Yeah.
that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that one's good too. There's some good ones in that one too. Um, yeah, because I know there's one that what's her name? Angela Bassett is in, where she's actually a witch and she's lived for centuries. And it's the American, yeah. And I don't actually know the name of that one either, Abba Harut, but I just remember it was one of the American Horror Stories, and it's the one that she's in, and it's a really good one because it talks about a lot of things. Let's see, this is why we have. Oh, I won't get ahead of you there, but yeah, that I think that's what he's referring to when he was talking about the coven. That's the name of it. He just, yep, it's the coven. It's in that series. If you go to the American Horror Stories, and they list all the different series they do, the Coven is the one he's speaking of, with Angela Bassett. It's a good one to watch. A
Okay.
lot of bewitching going on in that one.
Okay. 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 Um, Matthew 11:15. Who has ears to hear? Let them hear.
Hmm.
Who have ears to hear, let them hear.
Mm-hmm.
But grandmother, if you have ears, listen.
Now,
Listen.
if you can't hear nothing, there's a reason for that too.
If you can't hear nothing, oh boy.
Yes,
She says this is why we have a Levitical order. Everyone is not going to be a scriptural scholar just because they can read. Illumination is not provided to all.
that's right. That's right. That is so true.
Okay. Just
That's
the
so
way
true.
the way it is. I think Abaheru is agreeing with you, and then
Mhm. Yeah, Jessica Lange is in the movie, and he said yes, it's about witchcraft, and it gives some pretty in depth and his. Of course, it's not based on truth, but there's some truth in it. So yeah, it's good.
so as we begin to wind down, one of the things I know we spoke about was sharing, sharing names because we're always fascinated with the repenters, right? The big repenters in scripture, um, those who have done so much wrong. Like the first stories we think about are the stories of, not the Abigails. Unfortunately, that's not the first thing that comes to our head. We think about the Ruths, we think about Saul, we think about, Paul who was doing all kind of misdeeds before, he got a
Hmm.
whack on
Hmm. Yeah.
before he, but in reality, we have King Hezekiah. For those of you who are taking down some of those names, because I think it's really powerful and it empowers us even more when we're able to not just talk about the bewitchers, not just talk about what happens to those who bewitch. We can also have conversations about, you know, those who were righteous, those who stood on their square, so to speak. And so in 2 Kings 18:1, we have Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, who was the king of Judah. And it says that he did that which was right in the sight of the Most High, according to all that David his father did. Of course, we know that there were some issues there, but according to what we know, David was also anointed, right? So it's we think it's important, not I.
Hmm.
We think it's important to share some of those names that you may not think of upon reading this the title or even listening to it. You wouldn't think about these people who are righteous because they aren't at the forefront of our heads. We also have King Asa from 1 Kings 15:11, and it says Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Most High, and did David his father.
Hmm.
Pull another one, Enoch. Enoch is one of my favorites. I could talk about the book of Enoch over and over and over again, and about all the different heavens. Enoch. Enoch's reference is Hebrew 11:5. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death. Before his translation, he had the testimony that he pleased Yah. So we see these terms being revisited as when it's connected to people who were upstanding and righteous and walking that path, and some many of them were able to they could see, they were able to decipher truth, right? Moses and all of Israel were told to be perfect, which means that they had the ability to be perfect, right?
Hmm.
Deuteronomy 18:13 says, "Thou shalt be perfect with the Most High." And, well, I don't have my Strongs with me. We'll talk about that another time. Ezekiel 28, thou was perfect, right? And actually, this is a reference to what is considered the energy of Satan. Thou was perfect. So there's that understanding that is a right walk, right? That many people have exhibited in scripture, and we ought to look to those. We ought to look to those as examples. Um, yeah, we ought to look to those. I know there's some other things coming up in the chat. We read this one. Yes, yes. Thank you, uh, Ben Sadek. Top tier speaker says, not being able to hear reminds me of the deaf, dumb, and blind. This is right. Uh, Yahweh says, yep, not everyone is included in the congregation of the Most High or among the priestly order. This is true. Oh my goodness, that just opened up a whole other thing. I have to, oh my, wait. It's right, it's 9:12, so I won't do that. But it's like that just opened up a reminder of a time I was actually sitting studying exactly what Sister Yafi brought up. And it brought me to understand a little bit about what is called Hasidic, which is people who are following righteous law, you know, following righteous law. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that because it made me actually my blood ran cold when I read it, because I was like, oh, that's what it means when they say Hasidic Jew, right? So it's like, oh, okay, so you just took the word, attach it to yourself, and yeah, think that do that thing.
Yeah.
Right? But it's really beautiful when we could, and this is what Anu teaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anu teaches us, it gives us an opportunity to break down scripture and take apart those words and really see the hidden meaning. And you really get to say, oh, wow, all these words I was hearing before, and I was just like, oh, that's just a word. It ain't just a word. It's your word, and you didn't even know it. You know, you didn't even know it. So, and I give thanks for, Chief Yuya and the work that he's done, because yeah, I would never think that. The closest I've come to it is sitting in a pew while the pastor is saying something, and I'm reading Proverbs myself.
That's right. That's
Right? Because I'm like, what
right.
y'all saying? But I ain't really getting with this. But which was wrong anyway, and rebellious, and licks for that. Right? Pure licks for that. At the same time, I could say I am at this age and I'm able to say, okay, I can see Hebrew words and understand what they mean.
That's
And
right.
that I know, oh, sorry.
No. Because I'm thinking out loud and saying, I didn't mean to cut you off. You learning the Hebrew is what to me is showing true meaning, because now we see where what got lost in translation. And that's all I was thinking while you were talking. Is there's so much more to it when you take it back to its original form, which is all about what we've been talking about this whole evening, taking things back to its original form, so it can be what it was created to be. And bewitching is the total opposite of that. But yeah, please go on, because I saw how excited you got when you were like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And that's, what, that's a beautiful thing when we get that excited about scripture and we get that excited about taking it deeper, because that's what we're taught to do. In a new, we don't do nothing on the surface. Everything goes deep, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
So Chief just says, he says Yafet itself, Japhet for some of you who, and correct me if I'm saying, um, itself, root. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. It's just itself roots from Yafe, meaning beauty or kind or niceness rather. And the name of that child of Noah already implies glamour, deception. Right, Yafet was a child of Noah. Right. So the idea of having a name that indicates, that physical attribute. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, fat represents. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, true. True. Yeah, true. Because I see. So it is deception. Yep.
yes,
That's
yes,
part of the witchcraft.
yes.
Of the witchcraft. Chief says, yes, this is true. Yes, it was wrong to ignore the pastor. He was your shepherd at that time. He probably knew some things way better than you. He knew way. Yes, he did. Yes, indeed. Yes, thank you for that, Chief. He did. I didn't know nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. I thought I knew everything. I knew nothing. Everyone needs a shepherd, regardless of how brilliant they think they are. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And your share here brings me back to there was a time in my journey where I literally was on all these three paths. And I thought that I was the one in control. Of course, that degree of wanting to control, as you just said earlier, like it tells you about your godlessness. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do working with someone from Burkina Faso, and then I want to do, and I'm following Chief and his work, and I wanted to do, what is this called? Sacred Woman. And I'm here juggling those three things, and at one point, I had to I had to actually say, no, there is a shepherd and I'm going to follow that shepherd. I
Right.
have to choose. It cannot be. And sometimes we fool ourselves. We bewitch ourselves into thinking, I did that. We bewitch ourselves into thinking, no, I could juggle all these three things. That without realizing religion binds us back. Religion binds, right? And it's supposed to bind us back to our creator, and it's supposed to bind us back to our divine self. And by being able to say, oh no, I have to choose one, right? And Chief has spoken about this a couple of days before, like he said, you have to have an earthly shepherd, an earthly guide. Like that must be in place. It
Yes.
cannot be, oh yeah, like I'm doing magic, I have my shrines, and I'm, like I have some off-world, you know, guide. No, that's not going to work because
That's
we're
right.
living on this planet.
That's
Um,
right. That's right.
that's not going to work with I'm a woman. I need a shepherd. I
That's right.
need a Messiah. I need a man. So how is that going to function? And that was a rude awakening for me because I lost a lot. I lost a lot, but gained my life.
That's right.
That's what I'm gonna say. Like and it may seem like simple words, but that's the truth because I'm gonna always jump in the chat. I mean, even if I was just like, oh, what's being said? Somebody say something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'll always be grateful for that because again, we find ourselves at crossroads, and sometimes when we're at crossroads, we get bewitched. We hear about stories about musicians who get tricked at the crossroads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And choose something that was not to their benefit, or they choose
That's right.
a leader or a shepherd that's not an earthly shepherd. And so yes, Chief, you are right. And it took me wasted years to get to a place where it's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's, uh, what's happening back there? What's going on? But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. So thank you very much, Chief. Thank you for that correction. And I'm grateful for you as well for the additional correction in that you
Yes.
changing the path, changing, where I was staring my life down. That was just like, yeah, a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
Also says a new light cast away weaker light of Afro New Age philosophy and circular theories. Spot on. Like I could not say that. I could not say it. I could not even employ those words to say it. That's exactly what it is. There's no competition. There's none. There's absolutely none. When you're talking about bringing and binding back, yeah, there's a power that is unseen, and I'm grateful to Anu for that. I'm grateful to our new light for that. I'm grateful to you, Chief Yuya, for your light for that. Because without that, yeah. And I'm pretty sure many of us are, like saying probably saying the same thing. It's really, really important to offer that gratitude, because we have to say, yeah, if I did not change the path or the trajectory, where would I be?
That's right. That's right. I like the fact he also says a natural woman needs a natural man. Even a witch gets her title from a man, the warlock. You know, and when I first saw that, I thought about when we were first talking about Bewitch. Like the show that came on with Samantha and Darren. She had an Uncle Arthur who was a warlock, and it was funny because I think back on when Andorra, her mother, Bewitch's mother, Andorra, there were some spells she could not do, and she would always she didn't get along with her brother who was Arthur, the warlock, but she always had to call him to do the spells she could not do.
Yeah,
So that to me, even in that, tells me that a warlock's powers, he still is that authority.
right.
When we go back to the man, the head being the authority and the woman being the body and the power, and you still can't move in power without the authority from the head. So it always comes back to that. As Chief said, a natural woman needs a natural man. And I
Yeah,
think, and that's the natural order, and anything you try to put in there other than that order, it's bewitching. It's throwing you off. It's enticing you to something that's not natural, that's not real. It's deceptive. I remember I used to go from church to church to church to church, learning different things. And I thought, well, all of it has a little bit of truth. There's a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there. But I remember someone told me one time that, yeah, but if you take a glass that's full with truth and you put a microscopic drop of poison in it, does it not contaminate the whole glass? So, and that's actually what I thought about when Chief earlier, he said a new light casts away weaker light of Afro New Age philosophy and secular theories. In all those churches, I was looking for truth. I would always find a little bit of truth here and there, but when I came into a new, it was like the unadulterated truth, and it cast away all those bits and pieces, the weaker light, because I wasn't getting the fullness, and that's because the order wasn't in place. I wasn't, some of those churches had female pastors,
right.
and who couldn't bring the light because where was her authority? Where was her head? And they subscribed to going straight to the throne, but again, they wanted to skip the natural order of things, and there's an order and a patriarchy in order for a reason. And that's where that was a weaker light,
Right,
you
right,
know. So and the light I did receive from Anu outshined it all, because all the things that I learned in those churches, it all came together in its proper order and its proper place when I got in my proper order. And I'm still learning to walk in order. I'm not there yet. I feel like a toddler sometimes, and I want to take off running, and I got that light snatching me back saying, nope. You're not, you just slow your roll, stop trying to run and get in line and get in order. You know what I mean?
You ever see it?
Um, And it doesn't feel good when you're on a good reel, you running, and all of a sudden somebody snatches you back. But it does feel good because you're being brought back into your where you're supposed to be, and you there's a freedom in that. Like Ima Yakura even said earlier, the freedom to operate in that position you were created to, and to stop getting out of line and trying to do all this other stuff you have no business doing, you
Right.
know. And I've forgotten that from time to time until I'm reminded, and it's always, it's not hard to get back in line at all, because you'd be like, oops, okay, uh,
Right.
yeah, let me not do that, let me not do that. So, and I'm getting a little sturdier on my feet, so I don't, I know where to go. I just, because it doesn't feel good when you fall flat on your face and now you need help to get up, you know? And that's what happened to those of us without coverings and without guidance and directions, without righteous leadership. We're going to fall on our face. And it's a difference when you fall on your face without those things in place. The scars stay there. But when you fall on your face and you have that righteousness to pick you up and put you back in line when you're supposed to go, those scars, they heal, and you kind of say, okay, I don't want to get those same scars again. So, I'm gonna be more careful how I walk and how I move. And um so yeah, it's very, it actually becomes uh, a, a relief and a joy to know that you're not just taking off running and going wild out there, that you have some restraints, because someone said it earlier in the chat, without, it was Iman Kuya who said, without that covering, without that guidance and directions, we just out there wilding out, we be on a whole nother level. And you don't really see it sometime until you get put back into place, and you be like, ooh, I was
Yeah.
I was drifting out there, I was doing the most,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
you know. And so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was thinking of when have you ever seen a toddler run? Because it's wobbly, it
yes.
it far. They don't get anywhere actually. They don't get anywhere. So it just goes to show that there is a process. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is a hierarchy in
That's right.
that sense as well. So that's really important. I do not know if you all have anything more that you wanna share or pour out into the space. I really appreciate everyone joining in and closing off this Sabbath with us, um, and just sharing effortlessly. What am I saying? Yeah, and like giving of yourselves too. Like the question that asked about, how are we Jezebels? How do we present those behaviors? I think it's really profound when we can share, and yes, share openly, but more importantly, sharing because there's that acknowledging of this, what it is. Um, yeah, I think that's really important. And before we kind of break, I think one of the things we wanted to go over too was repentance. Repentance is key when it comes to um, shifting our ways. Like we can live a righteous life, upholding law and surrendering, surrendering to Elohim in the current moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I think it's, I'm not look at the chat. I have to force myself not to look at the chat. But it goes back to Titus 2:11-12, which says, "For the grace or favor of Elohim that brings salvation has appeared to all men." all. I read it again. That so our repentance is in the moment, is in the current moment, and we by upholding law and surrendering, that's where that repentance comes from.
That's right.
We're choosing right. And I read Titus 2:11-12, such a precious little gem. For the grace of Elohim that bringeth salvation has appeared to all men.
Mm-hmm.
Something can appear and you can watch it and keep moving and do your own thing out of wanting to control. And
Mm-hmm.
so you will miss the bus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Miss the boat. So that's really important. And I also wanted to share last piece, Psalm 1:1, blessed is the man that walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, or sits in the seat of the scornful.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, really, I just think that they're so, we could go on and on and on,
That's right.
because so many little verses that we can use to, reflect on during our time of rest and edification in the Sabbath, to shift ourselves and move ourselves right culture,
That's right.
closer to right culture. I know Chief put something in the chat. He says, if you chase a toddler, they'll run from you because they really think they are liberated and totally aware of any dangers around them. Sometimes when you pull them to safety, they kick and scream.
Yeah.
Yes, they run and laugh and scream and kick when you snatch them up. True. This is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
I,
I
I, I have to
thought
testify
that's
to that because, but
tackle.
yes, yes. And I can just visualize that because, coming into, you think you're being liberated. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And you don't even see all the dangers around you, which is why it's so important to have that leadership and someone who can foresee
Yeah.
and protect you. I had one thing said to me the other night. He says, "Yeah, 6 months down the road, you're gonna look back and you're gonna say you were right." And I think about I'm moving in a place that you're out of line because you don't see all the dangers around you. You're not even aware of what's lurking, around the corner, down the street, up the road. And if you're not careful to have that protection and that guidance, and you just out there wilding out, the dangers are, and in this day and age, we can really, it's just unforeseen things that can, I go back to thinking about Saul again. Not only did he end up losing his anointing, his kingdom, but he ended up dead, you know, all behind being greed and not repenting, as you said, but instead using religious excuses and being greedy and blaming other people for his what he did, and yeah, I can really relate to that toddler just running and screaming, and if it's not for the person who's, protecting that toddler, because when we were first talking about it, you said, "Have you ever seen a toddler run?" I was thinking because I have toddler grandchildren, and I'm always put my hands out trying to make
Listen,
sure don't, because I see the corner of a table or a desk, and their head is like right there by that corner, and they're moving so fast. All you got to do is move a couple inches that way, and the corner of that thing is going to go right into the side of your head, and yeah. So that's a good visualization for us. Even when we think we know what we're doing.
and toddlers, I want to like, based on psychology, and I know this is just an example. The truth is, toddlers, there's this idea of seeing a thing, and when it's out of sight, out of mind. So they may see something, but by the time they turn around, because they're just running everywhere, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the danger that they saw before, that they were told about, is not in their head anymore. It's no longer their mind's eye. It's called
Yeah.
object impermanence. So they are not thinking about it at all.
And
So
next thing you know, you got an injured child that you're trying to comfort, and and I think about that's why I thought about I don't want to wait till the injury come. What can I do to backtrack right now? I need, you know what I mean? I don't want to look down the road 6 months from now and be going, oh no, because you never should have did it. So just fix it right now. But I was looking at the chat, and Margie Marie Art, peace. Peace, Akoti Maria in South Dahava. Thank you for sharing this message and opening up the space for sharing. To answer the question, when truth is being presented, attempting to avoid and manipulate by crying crocodile tears and playing the victim. Ooh, I remember that move too. Yeah. Matter of fact, I had an experience like that coming into this space. You know, when truth was being presented to me about a situation, I just started crying and boo-hooing, and you know, um, I didn't realize that I was missing the whole experience of what I should have been receiving from that. So give thanks for that. Ima Quia says, this has been an enjoyable bill. Give thanks, dear sisters, for the topic. Give thanks, Chief, for the insight you always bring. Always. You can always count on that highlight, you know?
I just spotted something else. Power Pataki, Saptarish. I don't know what is being said here. So, maybe you could state it. I'm not sure. And I'm missing being all dramatic just because you're on the right, you know. Well, that I mean that's the imagery of the child kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
You're carrying them, carrying us to safety, carrying us to safety, and I think it go that I know that goes back to that. And I'll give you a moment to speak after and speak on it, but it goes right back to what you mentioned earlier, Chief. The idea of having that shepherd.
That's
That
right.
that's that shepherd. That's that shepherd with the little stick back. Don't go there. That's a cliff. What you look? What you doing? It's a
Yeah.
cliff, man. Can you see?
Yeah.
God. No,
Yeah. I can appreciate being put back on the right path. Imagine, all the people out there without guidance and covering and directions who don't get that opportunity, So I count it all joy and dramatics and all. It's real and it's valuable and much, much appreciated. That's all I can really say. I don't want to keep going down the wrong path. I can appreciate being put back on the right path. You know, and I'm becoming familiar to the path, but I can't forsake the guidance and the headship that I need to stay on that path. So and I say that for all of those who don't know or enjoy appreciate having a covering, because every day I can appreciate it more, and just moving into a place where I don't want to live without it, and that's coming from a feminist, totally, I was totally wrapped up in the culture and a society that promotes a feminist,
yes.
from the military to always having my own money and always doing my own thing. And, you know, yeah, it's not where we want to be.
truthful.
It's true.
True. He said then
Trying to say I hurt your
truth
feelings.
is after is
Then try to say I hurt your feelings. Heavens to Mary God. Y'all gonna be winning some Oscars out here with all the drama. We chose hurt, gratitude, anger, compassion, or any other emotion. We choose.
we choose.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
cool. We
Yeah.
choose.
And for me it's best to choose gratitude when I'm corrected and put back on the right path. And it's becoming easier to choose gratitude.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for sharing. Ima Kuya, I'll just read these few. But even before I read these few, because I don't want to forget, because I know how these bills go. We get into one thing and get into another, and it expands, and we may not end up leaving here for another. I don't think so. I think we're shut down, but I will say I wanted to give thanks. I wanted to thank Margie Marie Art for coming into the space. I know I will say I do monitor Anu Woman. I've seen you um, engaging and I've seen you there in the space. I'm glad that you took the opportunity to come into the space and come into the chat and share. Be vulnerable, and we welcome more participation. Come on back tomorrow evening during the annual program because we'll be discussing beauty, and all of your ideas and thoughts are welcome. All right,
Yes.
welcome to the space. Um, yeah, top tier speakers is laughing, and Kuya says, "Yeah, I've been guilty of those things." Yes, indeed, kicking and screaming. But we are grateful for all of you who have been here this evening, and if you are tuning in a little bit later on into the future, my uh, Afro futuristic Ado people. I don't know if that's a thing. But, we are grateful for you all tuning in. Leave a comment in the comment section. Give us a thumbs up. Tell us what we can do, what topics we can cover that maybe, touching on even more aspects of character building and living a full life and, just using culture and right thinking to be on the right path, share with us. We'll be happy for that. And we do have, sorry, we have a upcoming Kingdom Culture retreat experience in New Orleans on June 2023. Our retreats are always a lively experience. Our retreats are always a learning and edifying experience. I mean, the last time we were filtering water and, well, we didn't get to build shelters, but maybe, just maybe that will be something that we'll be able to enjoy together. So, just click, how it goes. Click the QR code, follow the link all the way to the follow the link all the way to the website and not subscribe, register rather for the upcoming retreats. We'll be happy to see you there. Chief says, "Oh, you sure have been, Akia. You need to be next to Larry Fishburne on stage because you play Spider." Oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
Oh my goodness. And I will like to thank uh, Chief Yuya for all of his, yeah, I'm just mimicking your thank yous. Um, that was a corny joke. Never mind. Ignore it. Um, yes, our next retreat will be definitely filled with belly dancing and survival skills.
That's right.
Ima Yakira Eden says, "Thank you for the directed clarity of our shepherd, Chief Yuya, and Tuda Safta and Aputi for a beautiful build. Yes, indeed. Imokuya wants to build a shelter. You go. Please do not destroy anybody's shelter. That would not. Wait, I told you. I watched a couple of videos. Oh, you watched videos? So she's preparing on the back end. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Well,
We're gonna have a good time. I'm looking so forward to it. Who needs a vacation when you have a new retreat? You know what I'm saying?
yes,
You
indeed.
not only are you revived, but it only takes you a day to come home and get rested up, and the rest of the time you're reminiscing on the fellowship, on just the it's just, yeah. I don't even have words for it. So I'm looking forward to it, and hope a lot of others are going to be there as well. So
Yes, 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 yes. And I guess I just want to add on, like, if you want an idea of what our bills are like and our Sabbath bills are, the Sabbath experience is like, go to the you're on the web, you're on the YouTube channel. Sorry, the YouTube. I'm gonna read what I'm saying first. The YouTube channel, this YouTube channel actually, Chief shared this Who Are the Sky People. So that series is actually a beautiful lecture,
yes,
campside, fireside series that Chief completed on one of our last retreats, and so that's a great way to learn, edify, and also see,
that's
what
right.
what the experience is like. All right, peace, everyone.
Peace. Oh, don't forget, Chief was talking about, yep, the Shalimar review of our group.
Janice,
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time. Peace, everyone.
peace. Good night.
Good
Shabbat
night.
shalom. Right, to flammable. Akizak is the fire
Oh
alchemist.
yeah, oh yeah, and taught us how to keep it going too.
That's right.
Peace.